Welcome back to the channel, Cocoa Beans, home of the gold curtain. Yes, we brought it back out. We missed you. We missed you. Yes, we did. Today we're going to talk about communication, and we're going to jump right in because I know you guys, just as myself, are very busy. We got a lot going on. So communication. Now, how many of us know how important communication is? Show of hands out there. Communication is so important. The purpose of communication is to clarify, or let me say, give a sense of clarity, because through communication, we already know we're not going to always agree. Sometimes we got to agree to disagree. You know what I'm saying? So it's to give a sense of clarity, maybe not just getting that agreement that we all be looking for when we're communicating with someone. So today, again, we're going to discuss communication. Clear communication can make a world of difference in any situation. I mean, I'm sure you can think about maybe a time at work where your boss or whomever asked you very vaguely to do something and you're like, what? And then at the close of business, they're like, hey, I told you hours ago to do such and such. And you're like, well, I mean, you wasn't really clear on that, so I'll do it tomorrow. Understand, with clear communication, you get somewhere. And we're going to learn how to clearly communicate. First, with any type of communication, you have to be open to it, right? It's a lot of times we are put in situations where we feel like we have to defend ourselves, or we always have to have a response. You know, it's very important, especially if you're talking about relationships, and I mean relationships across the board, friendships, etc. You know, communication. You can't assume every time someone is trying to communicate with you that they have this, thing against you and they just want to cause all these issues. You can't take things personal. When someone is communicating to you and it seems to you that it's a little bit more harsh or not a way that you would typically communicate, take a step back, put yourself in their shoes. Maybe, just maybe, it's because whatever they're communicating, they're very passionate about it. Have you ever thought of it that way? Ever thought about it that way? Some people literally are so passionate about certain things in life that it may come out a certain way, but very pure and genuine intentions. So keep that in mind as well when you're communicating. Some people are coming for you to be informed and grow and learn from a particular situation, not to just rah and tell you what they want you to do. You see what I'm saying? So keep an open mind. You gotta be open to get clear understanding and clear communication, which leads into, don't get defensive. Stay calm. Communication is the best way to learn. The best way to learn. When you're in school and you don't know how to do something, communicate that with your teacher. And maybe you'll get some clarity. You got something going on in a relationship, communicate that. And maybe you'll get some clarity. Got a problem going on at work, communicate that and you may get some clarity. You understand? Communication sets the tone for learning. Again, when you have that open mind, you are more acceptant to what someone is talking about. Keep an open mind. Don't get defensive. Always consider the other's point of view. When you consider the other's point of view, you're able to stand in their shoes. You're also able to actively listen, which means just being a good listener. A good listener communicates well. Actively listening and not rushing to respond, not being defensive, saves a lot of time, drama, trial and error. You get straight to the point if you listen. Actively listening can be in many forms. You can listen and say, hey, okay, stop right there. Can I ask a question? To show that you're listening. You can, have eye contact, body language. Don't cross your arms, cross your legs, and just sit there like, get it off your chest. Body language, eye contact. If you had to right now rate your listening skills, your active listening skills on a scale from 1 to 5, what would you rate yourself? Take time and do that. What would you rate yourself? 1 to 5. 5 being that you are an awesome listener. 1 being like, you could care less what people got to say. What is your listening skills? If you scored a 3 or below, it may be due to some of the reasons that I have written down. And we'll just elaborate on them just a little bit, not too much, because I think they're pretty self-explanatory. But this may be some of the reasons. If this is you, we're going to fix that today. You may have scored low because you have a lack of trust. Depending on what you're talking about or whatever the communication is, there may be a lack of trust between you and that person, or you and whatever they're talking about. Technology issues. How many of you guys I ain't even gonna say how many. We all work with some form of technology on a day-to-day basis. Technology, if you don't have that certain app that your manager is asking you to have to communicate the morning call or whatever, if you don't have an email address, sometimes it's hard to get different notices from people that you signed up for, like newsletters with and etc. So technology issues can be an issue through communicating. Too much information being shared. Now, I'm not afraid to raise my hand and say that sometimes, depending on the situation, I can share a lot of information. Downfall with sharing too much information is whomever is on the other side receiving, if they're not actively listening and having that open mind to be welcoming, it's kind of like you're talking to yourself. And more than likely, they're only going to focus on one little part. So if you can summarize it up to get a point across, do that. Do that. Because sharing too much information, people can just it goes over their head. And then you become upset because it's like, you didn't pay attention. Well, baby, you shared a lot. That was a lot. But if they care, you'll get to the bottom line. Unclear. Just being unclear can be a headache in communication. And last but not least, not enough listening. Again, number 1, that person who could care less what anybody has to say. Not enough listening can be definitely terrible. Might as well just live in a little bubble by yourself. It's all about you, because if you're not listening, you ain't learning in life. And I'm sure there's a lot more out there that we can add to this list, but those are just a few of the major things in day-to-day life that affects people's communication. We got to correct that, guys. And to make sure that we reach that 5 in communication, I want us to look at the what, the who, the why, and the how. Let's start with the who. The who is analyzing and identifying who is communicating. Who are you speaking to? Who will be receiving this message? Do you know this person well and how they like to be talked to? Who are you talking to? The what is what are you communicating? You have to know what you're talking about. What are you communicating? Why are you communicating? Why are you communicating this information to this individual? Why is it so important that this person receives whatever you have to say? And how is how should you get your point across? Again, how does that person particularly like to be contacted? Like what is the most effective way to get through to that person? Is it going to be through email? Is it going to be through face-to-face conversation? Whatever. Is it through text? What's the most effective way to get your point across? How should you communicate this information? Once you have asked yourself the who, the what, the why, and the how, you have set yourself up to really identify, is the conversation even worth having? And if so, then you have already set kind of an outline of some sort of how you should go about communicating to effectively get your point across in the most clearest way for that person's clarity of whatever's going on. There are typically two ways that I focus on or I use in day-to-day life as far as communicating, and that's verbal and written. And I'm just going to give you one advantage of each and one disadvantage of each. As far as the advantages for written communication, it's the fact that you have supporting documents. So if you are emailing somebody, texting somebody, if you've typed up a letter and printed it out, you probably saved it to your hard drive. Those are documents that you can always go back to and point things out like, hey, I did do this, I did say this. Verbal communication is more straight to the point, which is awesome as well. However, the disadvantages to these things, written, the disadvantages are it could be kind of lengthy depending on what you're discussing. It could be very lengthy, and whoever is receiving can just focus on those little points or whatever they want to focus on and not really get the big picture and not truly understand you. So it's very important, if it is written, to summarize as much as you can. That again is something that I'm learning, but summarize it up so you can get straight to the point. Verbal is good, again, because it's straight to the point. You are right there. Most of the time verbal is face to face, but it can be over the phone. However, the disadvantages with verbal, you may forget to say whatever you needed to say. You might leave something out. And verbal, you really hear the tone of someone else, which is an advantage. However, it's a disadvantage because if you make someone angry or something, it might go a little left. And we want to go right. We want to make the right decisions and have clear communication, not go left. So make sure that you are doing what you need to do as far as figuring out how to communicate with a person. What are their likes and dislikes? And it all comes down really to knowing a person. But until you get there, just kind of follow their way, fill them out. And if it goes left, hopefully you guys can come back together through the different ways of communicating, keeping that mind clear and open to understand each other's point of view and get to a sense of clarity. But begin with the end in mind. Boss is asking you to go do something, do it. Ask questions, figure it out, get to the bottom of it. You're done. Situation is over. Ain't gotta worry about it no more. Conversation closed. You got a hiccup in a relationship, go in with an open mind, actively listen, put both points on the table, talk about them, come to a common ground, get past it. Situations should not carry on. And I tell you guys, communication is so important, especially during this day and time, because time is moving so fast. You don't have forever to correct these relationships and things that you come in contact with. You don't have forever. You don't know when you're going to have that last breath. And if there is a disagreement that you have with someone, understand that you may not wake up the next morning to be able to correct those things. And last but not least, stay on topic. If it has nothing to do with the situation at hand, it should not be discussed. You're wasting time by doing that. You probably pulling other situations into it, and then you got this whole messed up thing, messed up line of communication that's probably including 500 more people than just the two it started with. Don't do it. Stay on topic, be clear, and begin with the end in mind. I hope that this video has helped you guys out just a pinch in your communication. If you have any questions, want to talk, want to chit chat, want me to talk a little bit more on communication, just drop it below in the comments. I hope you guys' week is off to a great start. It's a new week. It's a new day. Stay focused on whatever dreams that you have for yourself. Don't let nobody stop you. Again, we have no time to waste on nothing or nobody. Get to what is for you. Get to your perfect picture, your definition of the perfect picture. And until we meet again,